Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at best bets on this 12-game slate in the NBA. Nate, nice 12 games after just one game there on Thursday with an upset by the Utah Jazz. We also have Play a Props Up in a separate episode, and we're bringing both of those to you each and every weekday, I should say, moving forward throughout the NBA season. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first best bet of the day here.
Yeah, very excited to attack a few mispriced lines here, which if you got on the look ahead, they were very good. Still very vulnerable. I'll start with the Magic -2 mentioned in yesterday's show that they opened +3 and got the money line at +130. Very incorrect, wrong team favored. The market correctly identified it because Philly is still not good. And Joel Embiid being out there is a minus. Like they were actually better on Wednesday with him out. And I don't expect him to suddenly be in shape after 2 days off. It looks like he didn't do anything to get himself in shape while he was out with the knee. If you even look back to the Olympics, like he was a liability at that stage, a really atrocious rebounder. He cannot get off the floor. He cannot get to the open spots. He doesn't try to box out. At least he didn't on Tuesday. The effort was not there. Because sort of some like token clapping as Jalen Brunson just goes right around him. Like it's just nothing he's doing on the defensive end. On offense, maybe he gets going a little bit. I mean, he was highly dependent on free throws, right? Didn't make a field goal, didn't even go to the basket much against the Knicks. Now you get Orlando's elite defense, and say what you will about Goga Bitadze. I mean, against a full strength Embiid, he might really struggle, but with the backing of the rest of this defense, like I trust him to slow him down a little bit. I think if you're going to fade Embiid, you go under 12.5 rebounds and assists, which is even money from what I said about his rebounding struggling, and Orlando limits assists to everybody, second fewest to centers. So, I mean, that's all individual stuff, but as a team, I mean, Philly this year, 0-4 against the spread as a favorite, and they opened as a favorite in this one. It just didn't make any sense. Orlando has won 13 straight at home, by the way, including 3 in the playoffs, right? So expecting them to lose to this team at home, I don't buy it. I know we dumped on their offense struggling for a while when they lost Paolo, but that's not the case now because Franz, apparently he's got this. Like he's fixed his shot, and he's actually had success against Philly last year when his shot was broken. He's going to the basket. They got Anthony Black putting some rim pressure on as well. And just, I don't know what you like about this Philly team other than Jared McCain flashing something, but that's without Maxey, who at this point is their most dangerous player. Like PG and Embiid are going to need some time to ease into the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought Embiid would be a little bit healthier. I'm not necessarily willing to just discount his ability right now after one game. He was a net negative for the Olympic team, other than obviously that one spurt where he did heroic things to kind of get them the win there against Joker. But like other than that, it was abysmal. I don't really feel comfortable betting on Philly in any way, to be honest, right now. So I completely understand. And the Magic, like I would be a little bit careful with Franz. I mean, he's going to the rim against teams that don't have rim protectors. Granted, he's done well against like the Pacers twice that they've played since Paolo went down. But I've been watching Franz stuff and going, yeah, well, when you play the Wizards and the Hornets and you're a guy who drives to the rim 17 times a game, it's a really, really great matchup.
Great. Now they have a statue in the paint.
100%. Right. That was kind of going to be my next point, which is like, well, how much better is Joel right now than anybody that we just mentioned in terms of Joval, or anybody else that's Grant Williams trying to protect the paint for the Hornets. Like it's all bad for all those teams. And I think Philly's unfortunately comparable to both of those teams that we just mentioned right now, maybe a little bit better. But yeah, there's just no way you could ever put your money right now on Philadelphia in any way. But let me go over to LA, San Antonio. This is my favorite best bet for sure, which is over 227.5. I'm happy that got bet down from like 232.5 where it opened. I think this is a really pivotal game for San Antonio in a couple ways. And I'll be talking about that more in player props because I like Devin Vassell a lot. And that's a big part of this. Devin Vassell is back. So him being back in this Spurs offense really, really is I would not touch this without Devin Vassell back. I'll be honest, because this offense was putrid without him for the first roughly 9 games of the season. They were like the 4th worst defensive rating in the team. They've got him back. he not only did he ramp up his minutes over the last three, playing like 20, 21, 25 minutes in the last game. In the last game, specifically against Washington, he ramped up his minutes within the game. He started playing into the second half. He still wasn't starting. I think he might even be announced as a starter finally tonight. Like that would be the pivotal moment is you've got your best scoring guard back in the lineup and in the rotation. A guy who scored 20 points a game last year in 33 and a half minutes without point guard Chris Paul and the ability to set him up. Paul might have 11 assists per game this year if he had legit shooters around him, outside of like Julian Champagny, who did well for a few games. And other than that, like he's starving for dudes that can shoot on the perimeter around him, playing guard alongside Stephon Castle. Love Stephon Castle. That is a horrible fit. I have no idea why those two dudes will be starting together. You bring Devin Vassell in the last 3 games that he's been here, their offensive rating has already jumped all the way up. I mean, in the last 5, even before he got back, the offense jumped up to where are we at here? The ninth best offensive rating in the last 5. And with him in the last 3, they're up to 120 defensive rating. And granted, they played Washington and Utah, but they also played Sac, who's 11th in D rating this year, and is no slouch on defense. So like there's some legitimacy to the offense being revamped and upped big time by Devin Vassell being in there. So that's really what I'm focused on. Like the assist percentage has gone up for them. And like the Lakers, what do you want me to say? They play fast. They're a sieve on defense, 25th in defensive rating. They played a few slower games as of late against some slow teams, but they're still playing at the 12th fastest pace in the league, averaging about 234 a game. So I think this should reasonably be a few points higher. I don't think it's so super broken at 227.5, but I think this is a 230 point game for sure.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, definitely more than an under. Definitely intrigued to see Wemby and AD go up against each other, see how that matchup plays out. But yeah, with the Lakers, like they're approaching 120 anytime that they have AD out there. I think he'll still be able to produce against Wemby. And yeah, just the pace. If Spurs are playing fast, then this will certainly go over because there's not a lot of good perimeter defense other than those 2 guys anchoring the paint, but there should be plenty of threes flying back and forth here. So I mentioned the other line that I think is incorrect, and it opened actually with the Pistons as underdogs, 2.5 underdogs. And now it's -1.5. I don't know if somebody's going to get fired. If both these opening dogs win, and people gobbled up these opening lines yesterday on an empty slate, like they are going to get rich off this. I'm glad I was able to hit both of them, but I mean, the point is that the Raptors are not good. They're not even trying to win at this stage. Maybe they have a little bit of fight after they come home from the 5-game road trip, but should be a little tired in that situation. And no Emmanuel Quickly on top of the guys we knew were out, especially Scotty Barnes. It's just like, where do they go for offense? It's just like Grady Dick still playing above his skis, I guess. But that's not going to be enough. If RJ Barrett as your top option is just starting to just completely disintegrate with other teams being like, okay, all we have to do is stop him. He has an 81 offensive rating during this 5-game win streak. Raptors only scoring 103, poor rebounding numbers, not getting to the line, not hitting threes with anyone other than Dick. And the Pistons are playing well. I mean, playing well regardless, except for a couple blowouts here and there to open the season. Like, they've been a very feisty team, a team that is going out there winning under a new coach. We might get Jaden Ivey back here tonight, which would be a bigger deal than losing THJ and Fontecchio, who are basically ruled out here. It is the 3rd game in 4 nights for the Pistons, including an overtime game, right? But they're actually 3-0 ATS with a rest disadvantage. Young team. Cade always seems to play in this spot, and Duren missed a couple games, so he should have his energy. There's a huge rebounding edge here. There's a huge edge in terms of limiting assists, and that's how Toronto has not been able to score in isolation, right? I mean, with RJ Barrett being your one guy who can kind of create. So the Pistons do a great job with that. They also do a great job in transition defense recently, and Toronto's #1 in the league in fast break points per game. So if you're a try-hard young team, you get back, you can beat this Raptors team. And they're good against the spread, but they don't win games. So giving a +1.5 for the Raptors is just not nearly enough for anyone to want to come in and back them.
Yeah. The Raptors need to kind of take you by surprise, get you unawares to kind of come in and be able to hang with some of these better teams. They've had some feisty performances against teams like the Lakers who I just think are, they're not beating good teams or even bad teams by that much, I should say. And Detroit is going to be a team that is bringing it when they know they have a chance to win. They're bringing it anyway. I think they're a fringe playoff team in the East, honestly, which I've been calling for since the beginning of the season, and we'll see if that comes to fruition. But this is a game they win. They want to win. They need to win if they're serious about things. So I think they're going to come with it. But I was waffling here. I'm going to go to OKC and Phoenix because I still think 7.5 points is fine. You asked me, and I'll talk about Devin Booker in the next in the player props episode that we have up for you guys when you check that out. Like, no, I'm not afraid of going under on Book. I'm not afraid of fading the Suns right now. This is going to be a complete jump shooting team. They're right now we're talking about Josh Okogie and Royce O'Neal as essentially your secondary options. So we just start there. Like, it's not fair. You don't have three of your top four scorers, and I put Grayson Allen in there as sort of the sort of fourth guy that can either create his own shot or at least make a three and get to the rim. Really just don't have anybody doing that. Josh Okogie took like 17 shots last game because he has to, coming off the bench. There's nobody else that can break down a defense for this team without his help. They're too injured right now for Phoenix, and it's bad. That's a bad outlook out there. But OKC, yes, they don't have Chet, and they've looked better. Not better, but they've looked fine. They have not missed a beat. This is still a rebound by committee, a score by committee kind of team. And in their last, for the whole season really, but even in their last 5, where it's sort of been a little bit of a downtick, I guess, because they've lost twice in that situation to the Nuggets, obviously, and then the Steph going crazy and the Warriors in that game as well. That was the other loss. Like, not really holding that against them, coming back with a vengeance in the next game. Still, what's interesting about them is they've actually played like the third hardest strength of schedule according to updated records right now. So they are playing the top teams in the league, and I think this is just overblown. And we've seen it go from 5.5 to 7.5, which is understandable. But really the only thing that this Suns team can do with their best players on the floor, and honestly, especially without, is shoot. It's just a perimeter shooting team. This is a perimeter-oriented defense. This is a defense that is forcing the ball down into the corners. That's the only shot you're really allowed to get off of them. Everything else, they're number 1 against the mid-range. They are number 1 above the break, number 1 overall, number 1 versus transition defense, isolation defense, pick and roll ball handler defense. The only thing that they give up is spot ups. So you've got to be a spot up shooter that is pretty open in the corner and getting that shot off. So Okogie and Royce O'Neal, maybe you want to target those guys. I don't like going over on dudes that I don't think are going to get to the free throw line at all and are going to have to shoot like 45 to 50% from the field to get their numbers. I don't want to mess with any of that stuff. So I don't know where the points are coming from. I see this as roughly a 15 to 20 point blowout if OKC is taking this seriously at all, which the only time they didn't take it seriously was in the first quarter of that New Orleans Pelicans game. Brandon Ingram goes for 10 in that game in the first quarter, goes for 8 the rest of the game, and OKC ends up blowing them out. So I see something very similar to that. If Booker's able to get off at all in the first quarter, great, but I think that gets shut down pretty quickly.
Yeah, another game we looked at the look-ahead line, and then Brad Beal's ruled out, and he's only worth half a point according to the books, like 7 to 7.5. When now you have no Durant and no Beal, I don't know about that. Like, yeah, this should have jumped a couple points. We talked about how even when the Suns were able to bully the Thunder down low, when Nurkic had 31 rebounds, they still couldn't cover this number last year. So now the Thunder going with this mega small ball death lineup against them. Like, this could easily be a blowout. Love back in the Thunder at home right now. Yeah. Just paint a picture for you real quick. Vika Zubac played against this team. Imagine that you're playing defense, even though you're like 7 feet tall. You've got 2 dudes that are about 6'6", 6'7", and J-Dub and Lou Dort slapping at the ball, just like hounding you everywhere you go on the court. It does not sound fun, even if Nurk is able to find some space tonight. So yeah, I don't think there's any matchups on the floor that they have an advantage over OKC. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. We're going to be looking at play props in the other episode, so make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Until we see you next, happy betting.